I was asked to give a brief overview, so I'll do this. I don't lose my speaking notes, but I will continue very much on the optimistic tone that Alexandra has set. So let me start that off immediately. As we're talking about the Greek upstream sector, a successful Greek upstream sector can have transformative economic and strategic impacts. It could, of course, generate significant revenues, but it will also strengthen Greece's already positively transformed role in the European landscape on the back of projects like TAP, IGB, the expansion of the LNG capacity, etc. But of course, as we have also heard during this morning, anybody who thinks about deploying an upstream program in the 2020s must adopt a mindset that goes far beyond revenue generation. It must fit with the transition to a more sustainable, low-carbon energy mix. It must reflect much heightened expectations, public expectations, about how we optimize the environmental and socioeconomic impacts. It must contribute to affordable energy and energy security. No time has that been as important as it is today following the conflict in Ukraine. So when the new board and CEO took over HHRM in the end of 2020, we set out a strategy built on three fundamental pillars where we were trying to reconcile these critical criteria. Our first pillar and objective was revitalizing the Greek upstream sector. The second was to diversify, to capture as much synergy as we could and support the energy transition. And the third was all about modernization, building a strong governance and an organization with the capacity and expertise to actually deliver these challenges. So, as you said, positive notes. Well, as we take stock of these challenges a year and a half to 2 years later today, I am very happy to say that we are no longer speaking of a vision of what could be. We are talking about what is actually happening. So I will just very briefly comment on these three pillars. So let's start about revitalizing the energy sector and the upstream sector. On the 12th of April this year, the Prime Minister Mitsotakis announced in a televised address that Greece will do all efforts to accelerate, to monetize its upstream resources, and that this is a national priority. That announcement sent a very strong and clear signal to markets and investors, and it was, of course, preceded by an extensive analysis which included the ministry and many here on the panel during 2021, and it was also preceded by two seismic studies that we started in the second half of 2021 that successfully concluded in January and February of this year. At the moment, we are now analyzing these studies with our partners, and we are working to advance in more locations. And speaking of partners, as many of you have seen, we were particularly pleased only a few weeks ago to welcome Exxon, as they almost doubled their equity investment in the country and took operatorship in two of the country's largest blocks around Crete. Now, going forward, our focus is to advance this progress with our partners, Energean, Hellenic Petroleum, and Exxon and others, whilst we are working with the Secretary General, with the Ministries of Energy, Foreign Affairs, Development, and Finance to attract even more investors into this landscape. I'll move to the second part. How do we integrate this then? Well, it's not surprising, given what's going on, that Greek citizens are, of course, very eager to reap the financial price of an upstream sector. National polling shows overwhelming support. 86% of the population wants us to accelerate monetizing these natural resources. But in parallel, the same polling also shows that climate change is one of the biggest concerns among the populace, as is, of course, now energy prices and security. So environmental protection, climate, economic growth, energy security, we need to bring all these elements into account. This is very complex. We are not going to solve these challenges by having a binary mindset fossil fuels versus renewables. We need to bring all the solutions to the table. And that is also why we have worked now with the government to transform HHRM recently, to not only focus on hydrocarbons, but also look broader. Last week, we announced the rebranding of HHRM to Edema. I know my Greek friends will give me a stick for how I am pronouncing this. But going forward, we are going to look after the upstream sector, but we'll also support greenhouse gas sequestration, national gas storage, and support the efforts of expanding the Greek offshore wind sector. Which takes me to the last point. With such an expansion of what we do, we're of course acutely aware of this is also a question about how we do it. And the third pillar we set down in our strategy is all about that. It's about building a robust organization with strong governance, world-class resources and expertise so that we can enforce these standards. We have implemented strict financial disciplines, a pretty aggressive stance towards revenue generation and collection, and we have been working with the investors to set out stricter standards and guidelines for this environmental protection. I won't dwell on it, I see the time, but let me give you an example. When we did these seismic studies, we sat down with our partners and we agreed, let's double the marine mammal observers on the ships. Let's double the exclusion zones to protect marine sea life. Let's put in place soft start protocols. Let's put in place emergency stop protocols. Let's make sure that not only do we meet the best international standards, but let's supervise these standards. And the response was resoundingly positive from all our partners. So let me wrap up. 3 points I want to make. The Greek upstream sector, which you will have heard spoken about for many long years, is no longer a vision. It is a reality that is in progress at a critical time where Europe finds itself intertwined in two crises, an energy cost crisis and an energy security crisis. The Greek upstream program can have a transformative effect, but not only for Greece, also for Europe, and not least a number of the, I think of them as doorstep markets in the region that is also very keenly looking to expand natural gas in their energy mix and diversify away both on coal dependencies but also old political dependencies on Russia. This program is going well forward. It is nascent, but we are also working with the partners in government, and I'm particularly pleased to have the Secretary General here today, to also ensure that we take this opportunity to build a modern structure around this that allows us to not only support the investors that many ministers spoke of this morning, but also, of course, hold them accountable to the highest standards that we today expect on environmental protection and our socioeconomic value creation. Thank you very much.